see, why is it that your prayer wasn't accepted? Maybe you're missing something. You're not getting the picture. Maybe it's something technical. Maybe you haven't learned how to do the wudu properly, or you're not pronouncing the words properly. Or maybe it's something deeper. Maybe we don't understand the spirit behind the prayer. We're not giving it its proper due. We're not expecting to get out of the prayer what we should. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that the reason for prayer isn't just so that you go through these motions. It's أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِ, that you get reminded of me being there. I'm there for you, and I'm watching you, and So when we see these ahadith which say that the prayer has this effect, it shouldn't be the case that we just think somehow it's a magical sort of thing. But it's something to do with, if somebody gets the most out of the prayer, they understand why they're praying, the effect should be that it will keep them away from going to the vices, from disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please say salawat. Imam Ali alayhi salam in Nahj al-Balagha, in one of the sayings that's been captured in Nahj al-Balagha, he says something very interesting, which is very much along the lines of what we're discussing. He says that the reason why Allah made the prayers obligatory, why He said we have to pray, is tanzihan anil kibr. He says that the prayers are there in order to make us clean and purify us of kibr, which is pride. So this is taking it a little bit deeper now, brothers and sisters. Imam Islam is telling us that if you don't have this prayer, what's going to happen is that not only is it, you're going to be reminded, you're going to be inclined towards devices, but also you're not going to be that good person that you want to be. You need this prayer in order to not be a person who is proud. Now, what is the connection between prayer and being proud? There was a group of people who came to the Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was during the end of the Prophet's time in this world, and this was the time when various tribes were coming, and the Prophet would present to them the teachings of Islam. They would consider that, and then they would, either accept or, depending on whether they were Ahlul Kitab or whatever, they would come up with some sort of agreement, some sort of jizya. Anyhow, they would come and listen. So the Prophet, this one tribe came, the Prophet starts explaining to them that, Islam is about believing in, accepting that there's a God, believing there's one God, and then prophethood, and etc. There's a hereafter. And they said, okay, fine, we agree with all that. So now tell us, what do we have to do? So the Prophet starts explaining that these are the rules of Islam. And he gets to the prayer. And he starts describing the prayer. In particular, he starts telling them that part of the prayer involves doing a ruku and doing sujood, meaning that you have to bend and to bow in prayer, and you have to prostrate as well too. At that point, they say, wait a minute. They said, stop right there. You're saying that we have to bow and bend and prostrate in our prayer? We can't accept that. We can't accept that because in our culture, bowing and bending, it's not acceptable. We never do that. It's considered somehow a way of, it sort of, we're very proud of ourselves. And if we were to bow or bend, that would be somehow going against what we believe in. So the Prophet has something interesting to say at that point. He says to them, لا خير في دين ليس فيه ركوع ولا سجود. There is no goodness in a religion in which there is no bending and bowing and prostration. Meaning that if you want to have a true religion, you have to have that bending and that bowing and that prostration. Why? What's the connection? The connection is, brothers and sisters, when somebody says their prayer, if they understand what they're saying, what they're doing, if they realize that they're standing in front of Rabbul Alameen, Dhul Jalali wal Ikram, the one who possesses all of majesty, every perfection that's possible, and they consider themselves as His slave, then how can it be the case that they feel any even ounce of pride in the face of their Lord? It's a reminder, right? It's a reminder that who I am and how insignificant I am in relation to my Lord. It's a reminder of how much I owe Him and how I have to strive to put these blessings to use the way He wants me to put them to use. And that's why we see that the Imams and they tell us that the reason for the prayer is to help us remember, because we forget these things. If we don't have the prayer, we just go about our daily lives. Maybe it's the case that we're particularly gifted. We have people look up to us, or we're doing pretty well in life. We're sailing through college, sailing through high school, and then we're going on the career track, sailing through that as well too. Well, we might start, forgetting that we are finite, because things are going well for us. And so we need to remind ourselves that we have a master, we have a mudabbir, we have somebody who's in charge of our affairs, we have a creator. And we have to remember when we're standing in front of him, whom we're standing in front of. This is my Lord. Okay, he was there with me when I was just a clot of liquid. And he'll be with me when I'm just a rotting corpse as well too. Right? This is the one who is with me, and he's taking care of me at every moment of my existence. That's a great reminder for us. So, let me give you an example of where this can come into play. Why is it that, again, what we're trying to show is why is it that the prayer and Islam itself helps us and is necessary for us to be a good person. You see that sometimes people have these negative traits, even among the Muslims. Okay, one of them, as we mentioned, is the kibr, somebody being proud. Another would be anger. Right? People who are prone to getting angry. And you see that happening. In particular, you see it happening where you have somebody who is in a position of power. Like one of my relatives was telling me that he recently started this job, and it just so happens that his cubicle is near the cubicle of the CEO. It's a pretty small company. And around the cubicle of the CEO, then there's the VPs as well too. And he says that the job is going pretty well, but he's shocked by the way that the CEO treats his VPs, the vice presidents. Every second word he says is a foul word. And he says with us employees, he's totally fine. He's like smiling, and cheerful. But then, when I listen to him, I'm shocked that some guy can even come up with these words at that age. It's like, where do you get these words from? And why is that? Because that's the way human beings tend to. When they have this position of power, they feel they can exercise that power by, that sense within them of rage, that sense of just anything that they don't like, just spewing it out. Now, the same thing happens in the family atmosphere as well too, particularly coming from the husband's side, because typically he's the more powerful figure in terms of strength, physical strength, typically. So what happens, is that, for example, the husband in the daytime, he'll be at work and he'll be smiling at everyone and very pleasant, joking around. But, life isn't perfect and the jobs aren't perfect, and, you have your ups and downs. So these things are happening to him, but he just kind of keeps it in. And, he's just smiling, how are you doing, joking around and stuff. Now when he gets home, that is his outlet for release. So as soon as he walks in the door, he becomes a different person. He becomes the epitome of rage. He's just he's just emitting rage after rage after rage. And if you do the slightest thing to upset him, then that's it. He just starts shouting and God forbid even getting physical as well too. And unfortunately we see this happening. Okay. Now for such a person, if they do not have God, I'm talking about God, if they don't have God, meaning that they've actually understood Islam and they're practicing Islam the way it should be practiced. If they don't have the true Islam, what's going to prevent them from just letting it out? After all, it's been building up the whole day. They have this tension. And nobody's there, right? They walk in the door, they close the door. Who's watching them? So they just go. Let it forth. But somebody who has God is reminded that no, there's some greater power who, number one, is watching me. I'm not alone. Every moment of mine is under the surveillance of God. And so I have to be careful, even if it's behind closed doors. If he was with me at the workplace, he's with me right now, why should I act any different at home? And second of all, when somebody like that is praying to God, and he's standing in front of him, and he's saying, Subhana Rabbiyal Azimi wa bihamdih. My Lord is perfect and He is pure. He is exalted And he is the great